It's been 20 years since the conflict in Darfur began, but hardly anyone talks about it these days. The violence has killed hundreds of thousands of people and displaced millions more. So will peace ever come to Western Sudan? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the program. I'm Tom McRae. This week marks a grim milestone for the people of Western Sudan. The conflict in Darfur began 20 years ago. It's killed hundreds of thousands of people and displaced more than 2 million. A peace agreement was signed in 2020, but many are still in desperate need of humanitarian aid. Victims are also demanding justice. We have a lot to discuss with our guests shortly, but first, this update from Al Jazeera's Hiba Morgan, who spoke to some of the most affected at Zamzam camp in northern Darfur.
When war started in Sudan's western region of Darfur, Ali Mahmoud says he didn't expect it to reach his village in Tawila in its north, but eventually it did, and he and his family were forced to find refuge in this camp.
We fled our homes in 2003 and were sheltering in the open or under trees. We thought it wouldn't last and continued farming that year, but couldn't harvest anything because it continued. People were killed, homes were burned, families were separated as they fled. I was separated from my sons and only found them when the camp was set up.
The Darfur War killed more than 300,000 people and over 2 million were forced from their homes, according to the UN. 20 years on, many areas in the region remain devastated from the war. Villages and towns were emptied as people fled seeking safety. Several camps have been set up across the region to shelter those escaping the fighting. Many camps for the displaced in Darfur have turned into towns, seemingly replacing those destroyed during years of war. But they all lack basic services. There is no running water here, no electricity, and many people rely on humanitarian aid. But aid has been dwindling for those who live here.
We've had cards to receive aid since we came into the camp, but some cards have been cancelled. Some people get them every 6 months, and some regularly. Large families that get aid don't even get enough to last them a month.
The number of aid organizations in the camp has also gone down. Aid organizations say a lack of funding is hampering their efforts.
We don't have enough assistance to go around. We have limited resources, and we are in a very difficult position where we have to choose from who gets assistance and who doesn't. So what we try to do is to increase informing our donors of the plight and the condition.
Ali says his children have known no other home than the camps. And after 2 decades of living as a displaced person, he's worried his grandchildren will also grow up with limited assistance and away from their home village. Hiba Morgan, Al Jazeera, Zamzam Camp, North Darfur.
OK, let's take a closer look at the conflict, which began in 2003 after ethnic African rebels rose up against then-President Omar al-Bashir's Arab-dominated government. Bashir responded by arming local Arab militias known as the Janjaweed, who targeted non-Arab tribes accused of supporting the rebels. Well, as we mentioned, hundreds of thousands of people have been killed and millions more displaced. The International Criminal Court has charged Bashir with genocide and crimes against humanity. He was forced to resign in 2019 after widespread protests. OK, well, let's bring in our guests now. In Khartoum, Eltigani Seisi, Chairman of the National Liberation and Justice Party and a former governor of Darfur State who was involved in negotiations in Doha as the former chairman of the Darfur Regional Authority. In Doha, Abdelwahab El-Affendi, a professor at Doha Institute for Graduate Studies who writes extensively on Sudan. And also in Khartoum, Hafiz Mohamed, Director of Justice for Africa, Sudan. A warm welcome to all three of you. Thank you very much for being on Inside Story today. If I could please begin with you, Eltigani. Do you feel like the world has forgotten Darfur and the conflict that's been going on for the last 20 years?
Well, yes, I do feel like so because, I mean, the conflict is still going on. However, I would like to point out that there are three layers of the conflict. There's an armed conflict between the rebel movements and the government of Sudan. And then there are tribal conflicts among the various tribes in Darfur, and then armed banditry. As far as the conflicts between the armed groups and the government is concerned, I think this is over. I mean, after the signing of the Juba agreement, most of these rebel movements, they have signed a peace agreement, and they are now in Khartoum. They are, of course, one more rebel group is still, Mr. Abdelwahab is still has not signed the agreement. But we feel that as far as that is concerned, conflict has receded. However, the tribal conflicts continued over the last few years. In addition to that, and one of the issues that are causing problems to Darfur nowadays is the banditry. As you know, there is a wide scale of proliferation of light weapons in the hands of the people. And this has been one of the most important factors that have been causing insecurity in Darfur. And well, I believe that the international community, I mean, UNIMS were there, the international community has invested almost, I mean, an amount between $13 to $15 billion in that mission. But unfortunately, I don't think that UNIMIT has achieved that much in Darfur. Had that money been invested in development, I mean, a lot of things could have changed. Okay. Right now, I don't think that there is any focus from the international community on Darfur. The focus is more or less on Khartoum and the government of Khartoum, and that's very unfortunate.
Abdelwahab, is that how you feel as well, that the Darfur is being completely overlooked at this point in time?
Yes, I think it has always been overlooked. I'm not. I think in the views I have heard, this seemingly intense interest in the media in Darfur, where all celebrities were trying to go to Darfur, or at least go in the media. It did not actually help the actual people on the ground. There was not really robust peace building. There was no aid. There was no attempt to look at the roots of the issue. They were only putting some soldiers, the UNAMID, over there, who cost quite a lot. But they themselves were helpless. So most of the time, their cars are carjacked, and they cannot even. They go to the police to ask them to find it for them. So yes, and I think the conflict has also, as Dr. Seisi has rightly mentioned, created transformation has undermined tribal relationships, and I think also created not only banditry, but building of militias themselves has become a livelihood approach. So these distortions in the society and in the environment need close attention.
Yeah. Hafiz, can you just explain for people that might not know, what is the heart of the issue here? Like, after 20 years, it still clearly hasn't been resolved. Can you just get to the heart of the issue here and explain it for people?
Yeah, I think the core problems of people are security. And if you look at when the war started in 2002, 2003, these conflicts, we are now back in terms of level of conflicts to 2003 and 2004 in terms of killing displacement. And the other thing, I think what the clear manifestation of the international community abandoned issue of Darfur is the withdrawal of the UNIMID without having a credible peacekeeping of law enforcement agencies in the area. That clearly shows that, I think, and the other issue is lack of support for the IDPs. And now many people are returning back to the villages so they can work, and they cannot because they've been attacked by the same militia which initiated the displacement and the killing in Darfur. And I think that is the problem. I think the international community overlooked and simplified the issue of Darfur and not giving it the needed attention to actually address it and resolve it. I think the underlying cause is still there. The killing is still there, and we are back to square one.
Eltigani, does it feel like you are back at square one? And What do you think is actually going to, solve some of the problems that have, I guess, sprung back to the surface over the last couple of years?
No, I don't think that we are back to square one. Square one is a very difficult time where we had confrontations between the forces of the government, supported by the militia, against innocent villages and so forth. Well, I think we moved a step a bit, but there are a lot of ground to cover in terms of achieving peace in Darfur. I believe that, the fundamental issue, the fundamental question that we raise is there political will from the center to resolve the conflict in Darfur? I don't think there is. In 2016, we have actually come up with a program for disarmament. That program was implemented to a very limited stage. The only way to have, things normalized in Darfur is to withdraw the arms from the hands of the people. A lot of these people are now, everybody has arms and everybody is willing to attack innocent civilians, and that's a dangerous track. There is a problem as far as the international community is concerned, but at the same time also, we feel that there are some issues with the central government. The central government is yet to pay attention to what is going on in Darfur, to put an end to the misery of the people of Darfur.
Yeah. Abdelwahab, how do you go about disarming so many people in a peaceful and secure way? Is it even possible?
Yes, I think Dr. Jari is right in saying that the actual conflict or regional conflict has now died down. There's no longer fighting between government forces and rebel movements. But on hindsight, I think the situation is now much worse than when the rebellion had started. And this might indicate that maybe the armed conflict was not the way to go about this. But anyway, that's now bygone. The issue is now when this war started, Darfur as a state or as a region was more prosperous than it is now. And Sudan also had more resources than it had now, because at that time the oil has been found and was flowing, and there was some prosperity. Now the economy of Sudan has collapsed almost. So there is no way that to go about disarmament or any other thing if you do not have resources. What you need is a plan should start in Khartoum, actually, because now also, as it was said, most of the rebel groups are now in Khartoum. Some of them are part of the government, but the government itself is now not functioning at all because the conflict has now gone to the center. So what we probably need is first to reach some consensus on a democratic process in Khartoum, in Sudan as a whole. The international community then should come with some funds designated specifically for resolving the issue in Darfur, returning the displaced people to their homes, demobilizing the militias. Then we will have some movement. But at the moment, as I said, bearing arms has become a way of livelihood.
Yeah.
That either the militias are either paid by the government or are paid by foreign powers, or they go and pillage and rob to live. So this situation cannot be sustained.
Okay, Hafiz, we just heard that there should be democratic consensus. What are the chances of that actually happening anytime soon?
I think, I believe it is far remote. I'm just responding to one point by Dr. Seisi. I think if you look at all the peace agreement, Abuja, Doha, and Juba, they also only providing jobs and remunerations for the armed leaders and in a circle is not addressing the underlying cause. And the problem is the issue, the crisis is started in Darfur not because of the armed movement carrying arms against the government, because of the lack of security and the government supporting some militia. This is why the armed movement are made, to protect the people. I think not the opposite. That is why I think Khartoum is the problem, is actual problem. The other thing is, I don't think all these agreements, in terms of word and in terms of articles, that are good, but never been implemented on the ground. The only part which is being implemented is giving job to the leaders of the armed movement and in a circle, not addressing the underlying causes of the problem and also the concern of the people, which is the main security. Therefore, is a rich state, and if we find security, people can actually can find enough work to contribute to Sudan security. That is why I think what we need to do is we need to address the issue of security and be serious about it. Are we serious now? No. And one of the points which is really show how we are not serious about it, because if you assign for the same element who used to be a Janjaweed committing all these crimes to actually be responsible in restoring peace and security, I don't think people are trusting them. This is why it's wrong to have the rapid support for responsible from restoring peace and security, because they used to be part of the killing machine of the NCP. I think we need to have a credible force which is being trusted by the people, so people can return back and ensure that they are protected. I think that is the point, and that is what is really missing. And until I don't see any signs that we're going to go back to that point.
Okay, Eltigani, do you think that there is the possibility of a democratic election anytime soon?
Just allow me to respond to what Hafiz has just said.
Please.
I beg to differ with him. I mean, in order to implement the peace agreement, we need to have people in position. There is no doubt about that. I mean, this is an emotional kind of argument, which some people always keep saying that the armed leaders, they only run for position. If you go back to that, I cannot speak on behalf of the rest, but I speak on behalf of those who have been involved in the Doha peace agreement. If you go to Darfur and you ask people, how many schools we have built, how many health centers we have established, how many police units we have established, they will tell you. I mean, and there are records on that. The only reason why that has not been so effectively, or it doesn't appear on the media, simply because of the security situation in the region. Okay, as far as democracy is concerned, I believe, I mean, you know, the country is polarized right now. It is polarized on political basis, polarized on regional basis. It is not possible to have 100% consensus on a democratic program to implement in the country. But we believe that we can at least have some sort of, a consensus by, let's say, 60 or 70 or 80% of the political parties and civil society on a program for governing the transitional period. It's not very difficult to agree on that. But the way I see it right now is the international community itself is not helping in this respect. They are actually, this is my own belief that those who are involved from the international community in providing support to the Sudanese to get over the problem that they are facing now is, in particular, unitarians. I think they are biased to certain political groups, and that does not help the country transform into any kind of democratic system. Okay. Can I just go back to Darfur to add one more dimension?
Yeah, quickly,
one of
please.
The most important one of the most important issues that's affecting security in Darfur is the regional issue. You know what's going on in Libya. I mean, Libya is almost, I mean, there's a fighting going on between various factions in Libya. There are a number of Darfuris who are based there and are fighting in Libya. Chad is facing a lot of problems. Central African Republic does not have, they are not administering the entire Central African region. There is a war going over there. Usually there is, these groups they go in and out of Darfur into neighboring countries and they bring arms and they're involved also in banditry within the borders of Darfur. So I think the issue of Darfur, in order to be settled, there is a need that the international community should also help, particularly that we now see a Russian-French conflict looming over in that region, particularly in Central Africa and in Chad. And that have a lot of negative effects on security in Darfur.
Abdelwahab, you touched on it a little earlier about the international interests, and I think in 2006 it was when George Clooney went to Darfur and I guess put the conflict on the world stage. Do you think that that actually helped or hindered? Because it seems like the situation didn't get much better in the years after that, did it?
I personally think it has hindered for many reasons, because people became focused on what is happening in Hollywood or in Washington, and even the people in Darfur were actually elated by this and thought that the cavalry is going to come and the Americans are going to send troops in, do what they did in Iraq and remove al-Bashir and then put those people in power. That's why they think fantasy. And I would add that maybe in a little bit difference with Hafiz, that in fact, yes, the military option taken by the rebellion had enhanced the insecurity, enhanced the poverty and destruction of the people. Yes, of course, we blame the regime for having overreacted, but the rebel movements themselves, as Tijani has said, they have also committed atrocities, sometimes against their own members by infighting. They have also fragmented into smaller and smaller tribal and clan movements, and this is still an issue. And now, regarding the issue in Khartoum, I think the people who are blocking consensus are a minority, even in Khartoum. The hardliners and the freedom and change movement have been always, there has been a kind of outbidding with extremism, and we as observers have told them from in writing in the early period that this extremism is going to lead to more damage and destruction, and they are now themselves suffering from that. They are the ones who supported the Rapid Defense Forces, and they are the ones who supported Al-Burhan, and they are the ones who have refused to have consensus, a broader consensus. Now they cannot. Now the international community is not going to help Sudan if Sudan doesn't help itself.
Hafiz,
they have to be a democratic government, and there have to be some positive interaction between the people of Sudan for the international community to come in.
Hafiz, I know you've worked extensively with humanitarian groups and on human and civil rights. On a humanitarian level, what do the people, those displaced people, need now from within Sudan, but also from the international community?
I think people, they need support in terms of relief, but this is not an option. I think, as I said earlier, that 40 people are hard workers. What they need is security, and also addressing the issue of new settlers in many lands, which actually displacing, the indigenous group within that area. That part of the security that need to be addressed, so people can go back to their villages and then work. I think they will need but very little support so they can rebuild their life and work again. But I think that is not the priority actually. Of the government or even the armed movement, which are part of Juba Peace Agreement. It's not part, because we clearly, from what they are doing now, I don't think that is their priority. And I think, I understand that, people cannot rely on relief forever. I think that have to stop, because the international community will have a fatigue from actually keeping paying. But what we need is to restore peace and security for people to go back. And I totally agree with Tijani Seisi. Is disarmament of all the militias is have to happen. Otherwise, we will not have peace and security. I think that is a problem. But peace and security is prerequisite for stability, for not only for Sudan but even regional. And then Sudan will become actually contributor instead of actually in the receiving end of relief and aid continuously. We can put our effort to rebuild, not also to destroy.
Eltigani, just before we have to go, I mean, people power has changed things before. Do you think that that is the only way to make lasting change from here on out?
Well, I think, but let me just answer the question that you earlier flagged on the international, on the effect of the international community. I mean, there are two tracks. I mean, the advocacy groups and the humanitarian group. And I do believe, I agree with Dr. Abdelwahab, that the advocacy group have failed abysmally. They have, in fact, encouraged the Sudanese government to increase the pressure on the civilians in Darfur. And their intervention was so bad that it has affected the work of the humanitarian groups. As far as the situation in Darfur is concerned, priority number one is to enable the refugees and the IDPs to go back to their areas of origin. And that could only happen if there's a serious disarmament of people, in a disarmament program in Darfur. Without disarmament program, there is no way that we can normalize things in Darfur. And the issue that I'm very much concerned with is, I mean, the government can do that. Why it doesn't want to do that is a question that we need to answer. The government has, they have the combat troops, they have the ability to do it, and we don't see any program of disarmament in Darfur. You may probably say because we don't have a government right now, we don't have a credible government in Khartoum, but that is not an excuse. Killing is taking place every day in Darfur. I have just come back from Darfur, where I was there for a month or so, and I visited areas of conflict where people have lost their lives. I mean, innocent people have lost their lives. And by the way, the IDPs now, aid is not priority number one. They themselves have become producers now. But the question is, when they go back during the season of rainy season for farming, they are being attacked. They are being targeted, and that is selective targeting. And this is where the government should chip in and disarm the militia and those who carry weapons beyond the armed forces and the security forces. Okay,
unfortunately, we are going to have to leave it there. Thank you to all of our guests, Eltigani, Seisi, Abdelwahab, El-Affendi and Hafiz Mohamed. Thank you for being on Inside Story today. And thank you too for watching. You can see the program again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Tom McRae, and the entire team here in Doha, bye for now.